Hello, my friends. Welcome, welcome. Just going to take a moment to appreciate your gorgeous faces. Ooh, look at you, Susanna. Ooh, you're looking very frisky today.
I'm actually back from 2 months Andalusia.
Well, whatever you did, it's fabulous, fabulous for you. So glad to see you.
Hmm.
One of the things I was thinking about with attention, and I just want to let you know that more and more people are recognizing that attention is incredibly important and valuable to give focus to how we're using our attention. And so that makes me very happy that people are finally beginning to understand the currency, of attention. And the word that was coming to me today was permeability, that attention allows us to be permeable. And so if you're just considering the something that most people really haven't got in their repertoire, which is shifting their attention, what we call a loop of awareness. Um, and I was thinking about whether I should start calling it like LOA, rather than loop of awareness. So I'm playing with it, whether to, give it its own little acronym. But if you're just letting yourself right now shift your attention, so you're shifting it out and noticing, and then you're shifting it to giving your attention to your body. So that whole act of shifting is missing for lots and lots of people. They just, their attention. My guess is mostly going out. So eyeballs are being captured, and what that's doing also, how I was experiencing that is that it's creating a drought in your own ability to receive. So, my sense is that not only do we want to give attention, but there's this reciprocity that when people are interacting with each other, so normally, what we're really exchanging is the is giving and receiving attention. But we've gotten skewed in the last 15 years to giving attention. And what I experience is that it kind of it creates a drought in your cell's ability to receive, to play with the attention, to be nourished by it. So as you're shifting your attention, I'd like you to notice, is your attention going in? Are you actually receiving attention in your body? And how do you know that? What are the senses that are waking up? What information? So, for example, feeling like I'm feeling my sits bones sinking into the swapper that I'm sitting on. And I can feel slightly more weight on my left sits bones than on my right now. And then as I'm feeling into that, my body naturally wants to shift and move, and I'm getting that information, and it's giving me a sense of what next to notice. And aside from the actual thing that I'm doing, the result of that, I've been experiencing just much more sensory weaving in my body, that I am aware of much more than just a narrow, like this is tight or this is loose. I'm getting just so much more information, but it's also making me available for the richness of my experience. And also, it draws us out of our heads as the only source of information into this vast landscape that we have in our bodies to receive. And I saw my quote for today is from Rabindranath Tagore, which is this beautiful. It's got this wonderful picture too of a flower, and it says, he says, "Let life lightly dance on the edges of time like a dewdrop on the tip of a leaf. So let yourself take that one in. Let yourself shift your attention, and let me just say that once more. Let life lightly dance on the edges of time like a dewdrop on the tip of a leaf. Ah, yeah. That's what I had. That's ah. So the nurturing of attention, I keep coming back to, that's really it, that we're giving and receiving. And how I experience this also is that I'm being. So when I'm giving attention to me, when I'm noticing me, I'm being, and then I'm being with. So we have a sense of being, but our sense of being is so often fed by what's going on out there. If I'm getting attention, I'm a good person. If people are ignoring me, there's something wrong with me. And we learn that from the time we're very, very little. So as you're giving yourself that being and then being with, and what I just notice is that I'm being with, and then I'm going with. So when I give attention to me and I'm being with, and I could feel my sits bones, and I could then shift in my sits bones naturally, not like, oh, I should do that because I'm unbalanced and that's bad, but noticing the weaving of attention and presence and then action then becomes much more organic. It becomes about discovery rather than about, I'm making myself do something and then I'm evaluating it. And so the whole sense of at a very fundamental level, that love is being with. And so we're really practicing, we're not only practicing loop of awareness, we're really practicing being with, which I've never seen a better definition of love, of being able to be with, be in the same space with. And then very often there's the next thing that wants to happen. And I just love how attention is at the base of that. And then the big thing that gets in the way of that is fear. And so when we're looping, we're doing loop of awareness, but we're also blending in fear melters with loop of awareness, either at a micro or a bigger level. Then you get to actually remove like the saran wrap or the lid that's on the reservoir that won't let anything come in. So you're opening to the exchange of energy, and it also reminds me of the second law of thermodynamics is that energy is neither created or destroyed. So we're moving energy around all the time. And are you really enjoying and benefiting from the energy that's coming to you? And so my experience, especially over these last few weeks where I'm expanding my bandwidth and am really starting to get better from my long COVID, the big thing that I noticed is that I had been in a drought of my inner experience because I had so little bandwidth that even if there were something going on inside, I couldn't notice it. So the actual expansion of the weaving of attention and movement and, the whole matrix of being alive is one of the big things that gets expanded, I think, by our practice, is that we get to enjoy being alive, regardless of what's going on, the flow of attention, of movement, of breath, of what we're noticing, of beauty, of color. That's all part of the joy of being alive. And then we add on to that. And what I'd like to add on to that now is our integrity card for today. And I'd like you to let your attention flow into the shades and the colors and the eyes and the openings, and then shift back to you and noticing how you're receiving that and then just shifting back and forth. I make clear, direct requests that include a by when instead of airing generalized complaints. Generalized complaints, very, very popular right now. And I have participated in generalized complaints quite vigorously over the last few years. So here's the sentence again. I make clear, direct requests that include a by when instead of airing generalized complaints. So this is shifting from complaining to requesting, which is a big, powerful move to create more agency for you in the world. And the question is, how can I make a conscious agreement here? How can I make a conscious agreement here? So I love it. It is a little bit of peekaboo. And one of the things I love about the card is that the opening is in sort of a different direction and a different vector than the eye. And what it brings up for me is that very often in agreements, we don't connect with the direct action, the by when. So let's come on back to the big group, because this little skill here of there's so much to complain about right now. If you just look around, you just toss a stone, there's something to complain about. And just notice, I'd like you to let surface one of the complaints that you've had over the last few days that has not gone away. So you'll know, it'll pop right up, that complaint. And what I'd like you to notice is if there's any request in there. So when I shift from a complaint to, there are coffee grounds on the kitchen counter again. So there's no request in that, but there's the payoff of feeling like a victim, of having nobody, a little martyr in there. So it gives your victim personas a chance to, but it doesn't really accomplish what you actually are wanting, to have something happen. So the request would be, I'd like you to swipe the sponge over the coffee grounds before you leave the kitchen. So, and that's a what and a by when. So let yourself notice, what do you leave out? I think mostly people leave out the by when, because they don't really close the deal. So think about your complaint and the request that might be under that. The request could be of you as well. It doesn't have to be of other people. But if it's just a general request, it's not ever going to get completed. So if you haven't got the person or the people and the thing and the by when, there's no chance of you actually creating the structure of agreements. And agreements, one of the best things that I learned in Landmark, which was one of the later things that Werner Erhard created, and he had lots of integrity issues. And one of the things he said that was totally brilliant, that I keep coming back to, is that really all of our interactions happen by agreement. So nothing happens in the world unless people are agreeing to have it happen. And we've seen evidence of that. I'm thinking of Minneapolis, where people changed the agreement with their presence and with their participation and with their organizing and with their calling. They changed the agreement about how they show up for each other. And they used, like, I'm going to call, and this is your precinct. And so the agreement then created a structure that allowed people to get mobile with protesting in a way that was very effective. So the what I found with it, when I've got a going on with somebody else, it almost always comes back to an agreement that was fuzzy. And how the agreement gets fuzzy is that there wasn't actually a request in it. There was sort of a disguised complaint. And like, I just don't like it when the kitchen's messy. It makes me unhappy. Okay, thanks for sharing. But then nothing really happens to change that dynamic. So I get to keep feeling like a victim, and the other person gets to be oblivious about what the issue is. But when I create a buy-win, what comes up, I think, that prevents that from happening is fear. So I make a request, and like, the other person is going to ghost me, or they're not going to like me anymore, or they're going to say, well, how about you? What about, they're going to do a whataboutism with me. So you're confronting and befriending the fear that comes up when you actually make a request. Here's what I'd like. I'd like it by now, by this time. And here's how I'd like to check with you that we're in alignment about that. So the agreement, the reason that I wanted to have this today is that whenever there's a kerfuffle, the first thing that I look at is agreements. Because and I've said that they're the canary in the coal mine, which is also such a terrible metaphor. I'm going to look for a better one. Like, we're dying, and we got to have the birds die first, which is what we're doing all over the world. Anyway, I digress. So if there's a kerfuffle, and I create a clear agreement, that then allows, are there feelings that need to be expressed? Are there other communications that need to be made? Are there actions that need to be taken? Is there an emotional something that's gone on? So if there's a kerfuffle, there's going to be a kerfuffle every place else in your integrity world, which prevents you from feeling that sense of wholeness and resourcefulness. But when you clarify the agreement, and then you also clarify that I was scared to ask you this because I've asked so much of you in the last couple of weeks, whatever is going on, you get that. What then opens up is this flow of creativity and this flow of collaboration. And for you, inner space that's not taken up by debris. So unfulfilled agreements, fuzzy agreements create debris inside where you can't really listen to your own body wisdom and your intuition and your impulses, to create. Those all come in the open space of integrity. So the big benefit of living integrity, of wholeness, is not only do you get to experience the flow of aliveness and being riding along with the universe and letting the universe flow through you. But the universe actually gets to flow through you because you're not blocking that access by having fuzzy agreements. So my invitation to you this week is to, with one that came up for you, or one that there'll be something that will come up in the week that's about agreements. And when you clarify that, and the clear, direct request that includes the by when. So, by the end of next week, or, before midnight tonight, whatever the by when is the T of FACT. So that's the taking action, is the by when. And notice I notice when I do that my inner clarity, my inner ease. I'm alert and at ease. So that's this lovely combination. So I'm not stressed and and efforting, and I'm not overcome. I'm relaxed and alert, and that's our learning space. That's when we're most open to learning. So that's why I put such an emphasis on agreements. And so I'd love for you to do that, and then you can give us feedback about particularly if you noticed an increase in your vitality, an increase in your aliveness, of that inner ease. So I wanted to be sure to share that with you today, because we're seeing what happens when fuzzy agreements are made. Like with Iran, we've got a whole bunch of fuzzy agreements and nothing is really happening there except a lot more drama. So it can happen individually, but also at a global level. So let's take a look at what we've got for Presence Connect Play. Oh, this is great. So Presence says, notice you, and then notice others and the room. That's what we were just practicing. That's really the heart of LOA, is to notice, instead of even giving attention or paying attention. I'm favoring the word notice now, because notice brings with it a kind of curiosity. See, when anytime I use the word attention, it has a lot of baggage. All of us have experienced, the baggage that comes with pay attention and you're not paying attention and, all of that. So notice me, breath and sensations, and then notice, and then that gentle shifting. It starts and continues the engine of awareness in you. And noticing, if I notice people when I'm going past them, I notice they're noticing my noticing. So we get this, of sharing, like here we all are. And instead of being in my own little bubble, I'm noticing you. And for me, it's an including. I'm including. I'm welcoming. So here we all are. We're never going to be in this configuration again. I'm just noticing. Like here we went, a couple of us went to see Toy Story 5 at our local theater, which has reopened after 8 years of being closed for getting flooded. So I could go right down the streets 5 minutes away. And it was just an absolutely delightful experience. In fact, 2 movies that if you haven't seen will give you that experience of, life and love and noticing, and that's what we're doing here. I can actually I can enjoy being here. So The Sheep Detectives, fabulous movie, just lovely in all regards, and Toy Story 5. And one of the reviews was that it was a totally unnecessary and totally delightful movie. But it's about AI versus play. So for me, this was a very, very important movie, because it's really talking about the value of play. And so I found that really, really delightful. So presence, noticing you, noticing others. Connect, very simple but very powerful, which is turn toward. So how often when I'm going through my day, I'm not turning toward, I'm avoiding, or I'm looking out there ahead, and I'm not really turning toward the moment. And how I've noticed that in earlier days is that I would bump into things, and when I was in the kitchen, I would cut myself or I'd spill things. So I now, in recent years, that doesn't happen. So my turning toward is part of what I do in all of my interactions. So I'm turning toward the vegetables, or I'm turning toward the water, or I'm turning toward Allie, the cat, or I'm turning toward the doorbell. We had a doorbell. The repair person came this morning instead of coming tomorrow morning, and I'm in my robe, and so I just turned toward and I said, "Hi, well, I expected you tomorrow, and here I am in my robe, and come on in." And so, and instead of getting all huffy and this is the wrong day and you need to go away, it was like, okay, I'm just going to turn toward and see what wants to happen. So turning toward provides you with your next choices. It can provide you with surprises. It can help weave places where when you don't turn toward, you just leave gaps of the possibility of weaving aliveness. So turning toward is a great way to connect. And then the other person turns toward, and then off you go into play. Oh, and play, very another simple word. This is very clear today, is exaggerate. So Michelle and I were talking before we all gathered about a workshop where she was playing with the drama triangle with people. And the key to playing with the drama triangle, for those of you who haven't played with that in a while, is exaggerate. So what I have found is that in order to go into play, the quickest way to do that is to exaggerate what you're already doing. So if you're doing a huffy, you just let yourself do a bigger huffy, and if you're doing a poor me, you can just do more of a poor me, and the exaggeration then very quickly turns it into play. And it again allows us to include whatever is going on, rather than we can only play with this, we can't play with that because that's not good or right. Or so this combination of noticing, turning toward, and exaggerating, I think that'll be a really fun one for you to play with this week. And maybe by the end of my protocol, my medication protocol, we'll see how my morning flemmies either turn into something else, or turn into poetry, or turn into some kind of flow. So thanks everybody for being here. It's lovely to see your faces, and I so appreciate the through line that we're creating. I also was just thinking of it as like we're the people climbing Everest. They're they're tied to a rope, and they're all attached to each other. And what I experience with you all is the through line of our giving and receiving attention. I experience that as an inner rope, as an inner cane that I can use to support and to come home to. And I invite you to just tune in to us, the usness, and let that nourish you whenever you would like to have some more presence, more being, and more being with. So thank you so much, and please continue to be with this morning as long as you'd like, and I look forward to seeing you next time. All right, thanks a lot. Love you.